What's going on, guys? I am back with yet again another video. This time we're going to be looking at what I'm calling the Snake Eye Fire King pile deck. This is going to be incorporating the Super Heavy Samurai stuff and the Spirit package. I recently learned that's what it's called. Let's get right into it. First, we have our two Super Heavy Samurai motorbike, and then we have our two Wakaushi. These five are all one-card starters. Wakaushi is slightly better because it plays around Drool a little better, because motorbike just adds Wakaushi, but Wakaushi actually adds a monster that special summons itself. So yeah, Wakaushi is slightly better, but motorbike gets you into Wakaushi, so that's basically why it's here. It's basically just two extra copies of Wakaushi. But if you do end up drawing both of them together, you can actually pendulum summon the motorbike to end up going into something like this patter using the Flamberg dragon or Baron de Fleur. You could run one of those cards in the deck. So yeah, we have our two Super Heavy Samurai starters, and then we have Aratama, which is also a one-card starter in its own right. The big difference between the two is Aratama you have to normal summon, and these you basically special summon for the whole combo. However, Aratama doesn't really have a hard brick because Sakitama isn't really a brick, because it can get itself out onto the board at any time. However, the Super Heavy Samurai package does run 2 bricks, and we'll get to those in a minute. So we have the Snake Eye Ash, which is the best one-card normal summon in the deck. It basically gets you to Populous, which is the reason for Snake Eyes being good now. Populous is also a one-card starter. It normal summons to start a good combo. And if you do see it in your hand, you can't search it because this is the budget version. So what you'll have to do is you'll just normal summon the Populous, and then eventually you can either discard the Ash or destroy it off of the island, then special summon it back off of the Promethean Princess, and you know, do plays like that. So yeah, we do have our one Populous. It's not a brick, so it's okay to have it at 1. It doesn't really hurt the deck very often. Typically when you're done with your combo, you're gonna have original Sinful Spoils in the grave alongside Populous. So what you'll do is you'll just banish the original Sinful Spoils to put the Poplar back into the deck. Moving on, we have our 1-for-1. This is so basically the whole top row is 1-card starters, like by themselves, no discard or anything needed. And then the first 6 cards on this row are gonna be 1.5-card starters. So they either need like a monster to discard, or a card, or something face up on the board. So yeah, Ponix needs a fire to destroy off of Fire King Island to be able to do good plays. Otherwise, you literally just end on Garunix and Kirin in your hand, which kind of sucks. Then we have our 1-for-1, which is probably the best special summon starter in the deck. But the problem is it wastes an extra resource because you do have to discard. So it can kind of be detrimental in that way. But for the most part, this is really the one you want to see. Either this one or one of these 5. Then you have the Diabelstar. This is kind of a pseudo starter. It gets you into Ponix or Ash. So it is pretty good. It can get you into like 2 to 4 interruptions depending which route you take. But also it's a great extender. So keep that in mind as well. Then you have your original Sinful Spoils Snake Eye. This is necessary for combos. It gets you into one of your level 1 fire monsters. Typically you're going to use it to get into Ponix because you're going to be searching it off of your Snake Eye monsters. But if you open it, you can also use it to get into your Snake Eye stuff, and then use your Snake Eye stuff to then pop off into like some Promethean Princess combos. So then you have your Fire King Ponix. This is kind of necessary for the Fire King stuff. It's a pseudo starter as well. Well, it's kind of like a 1.5-card starter, because as long as you draw it with a fire, you can get into Promethean Princess and by extension Amblo Whale. So there's a few cards in the deck that I run at 2, and the reason for them is because if they get outed, I want to have access to that backup one. A couple of good examples are original Sinful Spoils and Fire King Ponix. If the original Sinful Spoils opens in my hand, or it gets outed by like an ash or something like that, then I'm gonna want access to that second one in the grind game to be able to come back on my next turn, assuming that I was able to survive. So yeah, that's the same thing goes for the Ponix, the same thing goes for the Garunix, the same thing goes for the Fire King Island. So keep that in mind. That's the reason for those ratios. So yeah, moving on. Then we have the bricks in the deck. We have the Aratama brick, which actually isn't a brick because it can normal summon itself by effect. So it doesn't actually use your normal summon, but it normal summons itself. So it can actually play around effects that prevent you from special summoning as well. So yeah, keep that in mind. Pretty good card. It can also convert itself into a fire because it's a normal summon with less than 800 attack. So yeah. Then you have your super heavy bricks, super heavy soul guy booster. This isn't the worst brick because if you see it alongside one of your super heavy starters, it still works. But it's still not great to see because you're always gonna search it off of your super heavy combo. So then you have your big Benkei, which is probably the worst brick in the deck to see. Because it forces you to normal summon your Wakaushi. What you could do to prevent that is run 2 of them, but then you'd be clogging up your deck with an extra brick, and I don't really, I'm not a big fan of that. So we already run a good amount of bricks in the deck, but the deck is extremely consistent, so it is plausible to do that. So next we have our Flamberg. This is going to be the Snake Eye brick. It's not the worst because if you see it in your hand, you can special summon it off of the Ash still. But you know, you would have probably done that anyways from the deck, so you're basically wasting a card. So it's basically the same as Soul Gaia Booster in that way, except you're going to use it in basically every single combo, so it's a little better than Soul Gaia Booster. And you have 3 Kieran. This is probably the best Fire King card in the deck. It helps you dodge targeting effects. It helps you destroy your cards on your opponent's turn. It helps you destroy your cards on a quick effect. It's just insane for the deck, and it's searchable, and you end off your turn with it, and it can help you extend your combos, and it's just an incredible card. Then you have your Fire King Garunix. This card is similar, but the issue is if you have 2 of them in rotation, they don't really do anything for you. So really you only want to have 1 in rotation, but if it gets outed, you really want to have access to that backup. So that's why we run 2 of them, but I would run 1 if it wasn't such a big graveyard target for disruption. So yeah. Then we have the Barong. We run it at 1. It's kind of like a brick in the deck, but not really because you can destroy it pretty easily from your hand. And it can actually help you facilitate better plays. But it's not great to have at 2 because you don't want to draw it over some other cards in your deck. So yeah, but it is necessary for some combos to dodge nib and stuff like that, so keep it in the deck, do not cut it. Then we have Fire King Avatar Avada. We almost never normal summon this card anymore. If you're normal summoning this card, you have probably the worst possible hand you could have, but it does help us facilitate some good combos. Something like Barong, it's actually a little better than Barong in that way, because it does help us, you know, special summon extra bodies and do things like that. So very good card. It can also be used as an extra disruption if you see it alongside your full combo. So yeah. Then you have Hanuman. Same thing as I said at the end there for Arvada applies for Hanuman. It can be used as an interruption if you see it alongside any starter. So a lot of people are sleeping on this card. I think it's because they haven't really tested well with it. It really helps you dodge things like Evenly, Lightning Storm, Harpy's Feather Duster, things like that. It can really be helpful in that way. So I don't recommend cutting it, but if you absolutely have to cut it, I understand, you know, all the pros are doing it, so I guess it must be okay to cut it. Then you have your Sanctuary of the Fire Kings. I would run it at 2 because it helps you play around roll, but we just have so many good starters, and a lot of them already inherently play around roll. So We don't actually need it at multiples, and it's not really like necessary for the grind game or for getting your plays started, because we have 2 Fire King Island. So the reason for this, like I said earlier, is if it gets outed, we want to have access to that backup. It's kind of like a pseudo starter, making Sanctuary a pseudo starter because it places it. So it is a very good card, but we have so many good starters in the deck that get us way more interruptions that it's not even really worth using it as a starter. It's more of like an extender and something that you would search off of your combo. So yeah, then we have our Circle of the Fire Kings. This is really, really, really good in the deck. If the deck wasn't so tight, I would probably run it at 2. It's good generically for all fire monsters, so it's not just good for the fire stuff. It's good for the Snake Eyes stuff. It's good for a lot of our extra deck because most of our extra deck is fire. So yeah, keep that in mind. It is extremely good. Do not cut. It's probably better than the next card, which is Skyburn. This card is really good for breaking boards. It's really good as an extra disruption on your opponent's turn. But with this version of the deck, you're typically only popping 1 or 2 cards because you're not really swarming the field with Fire Kings. You're typically swarming the field with Snake Eyes and extra deck monsters. Things like Promethean Princess, IP Masquerena, Appaloosa, Flamberg Dragon, things like that. The only time you're really going to have Fire King cards on your board is after you resolve your Kieran, and then you resolve your Garunix. That gives you total of 3 Fire King cards because your Garunix would pop something from the deck to special summon something. But then, even then, you're going to want your 2 level 8s in order to go into your Xyz. And then at that point, you know, you have your whatever you revived off of the Garunix sending. And then you have your Xyz, and then that's 2 at max. So, yeah. Fire King Skyburn isn't the greatest anymore, but it's still very useful in the deck, and I don't recommend cutting it. Now we're going to go into our non-engine. So we have our Called by the Grave. This helps us dodge hand traps and stuff like that. It also helps against certain decks, especially like in the mirror match against Fire King. You banish the Barong in the draw phase or during the standby after they used it or something like that. You banish the Ponix during your turn. That way they can't use it on your turn or their turn as a starter. Things like that. You can banish the Flamberg Dragon to negate it. You can banish the Promethean Princess to stop it from coming out. Things like that. So yeah. Then we have a Ghost Spell. It's kind of similar to Called By, actually. They really interact with a lot of the same things. But because Called By is at 1, we need something else to really handle those interactions. And also, going second, Ghost Spell is just better. So we have the 2 Ghost Spell there. We have our 2 Droll and Lockbird. The reason for these ratios is because the deck is so tight. And we want to fit our 3 Ash because it's a fire and it's probably the best hand trap in the game. Even though, you know, it is a threat for your opponent going into Hita, we're not too worried about that because if we Ash them at the correct point, hopefully that's not an issue or they have to use extra resources to get into said Hita and things like that. So yeah. Then we have our Ash, which I was just talking about. Best hand trap in the game, and that's our non-engine. Now let's get into our extra deck. So this is kind of spicy. We have our Borreload Savage Dragon. You make this off of the Superheavy Samurai engine, and I will upload a video showing the combos for that. So look out for that. That's coming very soon. Next we have Abyss Dweller. Abyss Dweller is kind of similar. You can go onto it off of the Aratama stuff or the Superheavy Samurai stuff. If you get interrupted, like let's say for example you get drolled on Aratama or Wakaushi, then you could go into Abyss Dweller, or you could find a way to link off something to then send off the link to go into Borreload Savage Dragon. So that is possible. I've done it in a couple of games, so yeah, these 2 are pretty good in the deck. Then we have Infernal Flame Banshee. This is the card that turns your your free rank 4s into starters, because Wakaushi can get you into Infernal Flame Banshee with just special summons, and Aratama can get you into Infernal Flame Banshee by normal summoning itself. So yeah, that Infernal Flame Banshee allows you to add the Poplar, which gets you into basically full combo. So then we have our Runic's Eternity, necessary for your Fire King stuff. It's the end of your combo. It's pretty good as the cherry on top for all of your interruptions. Pretty much impossible for your opponent to win if you have all of your interruptions plus this. Then you have your Dengirsu. This is basically for decks that are really good against us because they're good against destruction, or they're like immune against destruction or whatever. So we can use Dengirsu to really disrupt those decks. So then we have our Linkuriboh. It's necessary for combos. It's good for dodging targeted negation as well. Also good for Link climbing into your Heat Soul. So yeah, then we have our Salamangreat Almirage. This turns a lot of your cards into fires, even if they're not fires. For example, your Bell, your Droll and Lockbird, your Sakitama, your Aratama, all of those can just link straight into a Almirage, and now you have a fire. So that can help you get started with combos, even if you don't have access to a fire. Then we have our Salamangreat Sunlight Wolf. This is really good for the deck for adding back Kieran typically. It can also add back Garunix so that you play around the graveyard interruptions. Besides that, it helps you go into Heat Soul as well as the Linkuriboh. So yeah, pretty good card. Then you have a Promethean Princess. This is kind of the god card of the extra deck. You want to get into it every single game, and it's very easy to get into. So it's not like that's very hard to do. It helps you by special summoning a fire from the grave, and then it helps you link into something like Amblo Whale, or it can help you by special summoning an extender from the grave. That way you can use that extender to then go into more monsters and then link climb further and further. So yeah, extremely good card in the deck, and probably the best card in fire extra decks going forward. Then we have our Decode Talker Heat Soul. This is necessary as like a super extension, or if you have Promethean Princess in the grave already and you want to go full combo off of some type of starter, or if you want to extend past Promethean Princess and past Amblo Whale, you can actually go into Sunlight Wolf into Heat Soul. So yeah, pretty good for combos. Not necessary for the deck, but it comes up so often that I wouldn't cut it. Heat to the Fire Channeler. Fire is just in the meta. It's pretty good. It gets you automatically into Promethean Princess if you can resolve the effect. So that automatically gets you into an Amblo Whale, which then allows you to basically pop off and do a bunch of stuff. So then we have our Amblo Whale, which is just the link for our princess lines. Then we have IP Masquerena. This is typically done off of your Flamberg lines. So you're not going to go into it every single game, but you're going to go into it very, very often. Then we have our Pit Knight Early. Pit Knight Early is basically our SP Little Knight, but it's also fire and comes back every end phase that it's destroyed. So it helps us out a lot. It's not as good as SP still, but it is a very good substitute. And we have Appaloosa, which is just like, if you know how to play around Appaloosa, let's say for example you put up Appaloosa and Borreload Savage Dragon, your opponent is going to have to do so many things just to get around those two effects that it's going to put them in a losing position automatically. Then we have our side deck. So our side deck is going to start off with Underworld Goddess. The reason for this is because we struggle to get over towers monsters that can't be like destroyed or can't be sent, can't be, are unaffected, but have a lot of stats, have high stats. Those monsters are really hard for us to get over. So Underworld Goddess really helps us out because we swarm the field so easily. So Underworld Goddess is always an option for us. Then we have, so this is going to be another Superheavy Samurai package. It's going to be Suani, Fire of the Yangzing, Soul Horns, the Superheavy Samurai Soul Horns, Danglong and Xiaofang in the extra deck. This is going to be your anti, light, and fire combo. So I'll give credit to Spanko for this, and I'll also give credit to Super Insane for the Super Heavy Samurai stuff, because these two packages are like actually pretty insane. This combo, if you side it in against fire and light decks, and you draw, let's say for example, Wakaushi and Ash. If you do Wakaushi uninterrupted, the full combo, you can go into Xiaofeng and lock your opponent out from using all light and fire effects. What's included in that? Effect Veiler, Ash Blossom, Nibiru, Artifact Lancia. Like, so many cards are included in that. And if your opponent is a fire or light deck, it's just going to be basically GG for them. Because after that, you're going to go your full Ash combo, and you're going to have like 7 interruptions on top of the floodgate of Xiaofeng, and it's just going to be over. Your opponent's not going to be able to do anything. Now, let's say your opponent interrupts the Wakaushi. Okay, well, I hope you have another interruptions, because now I have full Ash combo, because I don't have to normal summon to go into the Wakaushi combo, which is insane. Then we have our Artifact Lancia. This card is just really good against anything that's good against us. So things like Graveyard Disruption, the only ones that we can't really block with the Artifact Lancia are going to be Ghostbell and Skullmeister, and nobody plays Skullmeister. So, you know, things like Call By, Soul Release, EDOPro, we're going to be able to block all of that stuff. On top of that, there are a lot of decks in the meta that require banishing in order to do their stuff. So if you cut that off, you're basically ending their turn at that point. On top of that, there's a deck called Fluander Reed, and it's a shifter deck, which guess what blocks shifter? Lancia. Yeah! So Lancia is just insane in this deck. I really think every Fire King player should have it in their side deck. And I really swear by it. And I've tested it just a little bit, and it has absolutely overperformed in all of my testing. Then we have our one Phantasme. I kind of just needed one card to fill out the side deck, and I figured what better than a card that gets me into more cards. And on top of that, SP is everywhere, and almost every deck in the meta right now link summons. So Phantasme is almost always live, and even if it's not great, drawing it can help you fix your hand. So even if it's not great, it's still good in almost every situation. Then we have our time package, which is going to be our Volcanic Scattershot and Fire King Avatar Kirin. If you're going into time, you side these two in. That way Garunix can actually destroy the Avatar Kirin, so that Kirin can actually send the Volcanic Scattershot and then burn your opponent for 500. So that way you can win in time. Kind of scummy, but you know, you gotta do what you gotta do. This deck is not exactly a quick combo deck. These combos take a pretty long time. So yeah, especially if you're not familiar with them, you're gonna be sitting there for 10-15 minutes doing one combo, and a one card combo at that. So yeah. Then you have your Harpy's Feather Duster. This is all going to be basically back row disruption. You have your Cosmic Cyclone. Also, the reason for 42 cards is because I wanted to have as much hand interruption as possible to go alongside our, you know, plethora of starters, but I also wanted to keep the deck count down as much as possible, because, you know, we want to be able to get to our starters consistently. Also, the fact that these are twos makes it easier to side, because you can go, you know, take the 2 Drolls out for the 2 Super Heavy Samurai package monsters, and then you can take these 2 out for the 2 extra deck monsters. Speaking of, typically I'm going to be taking these 2 out for the 2 extra deck monsters, and I'm going to be taking some type of engine, probably 1 Ponix and 1 Island out for these 2, or maybe even like 1 motorbike and 1 Aratama out for these 2, something like that. So yeah, that's gonna be this deck profile. If you guys liked it, like and subscribe. Let me know what I could improve. Let me know if there's anything else that I could have done here. Let me know if you guys are excited to see the combo video. And I'm out. Peace.